call to order this regular Board of Directors meeting for the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, October 3rd, 2023. Roll call.
Carroll.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Wiles. Smiley.
Here.
Blair.
Here.
At this time, if you all will please stand with me as Director Smiley leads us in prayer, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And for this great day, we are thankful for the opportunity to come together and serve our citizens. We ask you to give us the ability to make wise and careful decisions in the best interest of our cities and our citizens. We pray that you keep our community safe and you will watch over our community, our nation, and all those that serve and protect us wherever they may be. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. And at this time, I would like to ask that anyone that has an electronic device, please silence that so we don't have an interruption during the meeting. And thank you for doing that. Next is public input time. Is there anyone that would like to address the board on any item that is not on our regular agenda? And if so, you may come to the podium, give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Stacy Morris, Main Street, Siloam Springs, 311 South Mount Olive. I just wanted to remind everyone this weekend is the Homegrown Festival, and it starts at 9 o'clock, runs till 5 o'clock. We have lots of vendors, food trucks, musicians all throughout the day. So, and the weather is supposed to be really great fall weather. So I hope that all of you can attend, and we'll see you Saturday.
Thank you, Stacy. Is there anyone else?
Blake Jones, Siloam Springs. So I want to take a minute. Mr. Allen didn't want to hear what I had to say last time. Mr. Wiles tried to kick me out of the meeting, so I want to go ahead and address this while I can. David lost me whenever he voted Mr. Gilbert onto the administrator when he watched him commit a constitutional violation and block me from this meeting. So I think we all have our qualms, right? So the reality is, I told you that these videos that are here that I can't see on the board, right? Can we get those? Here we go. So I told you all along that these officers, these videos were not redacted, that they messed with them, they destroyed them. And whether they say that the officers muted them or whether, like I said, Spicer removed it, it doesn't matter. But you can clearly see that the first one is the original, and it says it's with ACIC redactions. And now after Judge Karen caught them doing what they did, they now say that the same video has no redactions on it. So as I said all along, I've been right. You guys have violated my civil rights. And I'm going to take a moment, hopefully this will play, and this is Jay actually lying to you guys on 4/4 of 23.
And reach the same conclusion. In particular, about some unredacted recordings that he asked for and has not received. There is a mechanism available to him to receive those. It is through the court. It is not through FOIA. FOIA requires that those redactions be made. But if
I'll stop it there. He said FOIA requires those redactions to be made, and that would be impossible because, as you see, there's no redactions to the video. They withheld this evidence. They tried to prosecute me and imprison me, and luckily, by the grace of God, Judge Karen caught them doing that. And then they changed their narrative to now, finally, that they muted their microphones, when all along, as you see, they said that they redacted these videos. So that's why we're in federal court. That's why we continue to have problems, because you continue to allow these people to do these kinds of acts. Beyond that, I asked for 2 videos tonight to be put onto the screen. Mr. Gilbert has refused to put those on. I'll address it very quickly. when the city had a jail and you guys raped over 4,000 citizens. There's still people that are still working here. And you paid $1.85 million to the taxpayers, or the taxpayers' money that you paid to these people. Some of them only got a couple $100 a piece for being sodomized by your police officers. So even though they're going rated prostitution, I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure those people don't appreciate that. And beyond that, I just say that as we continue and we go down this legal process, I hope that you guys can come to terms. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Warden Arthur Holbert, 20705 Highway 16, President and CEO of Silent Springs Chamber of Commerce. We're just wrapping up another quarter and want to give a real brief summary of where we are. A lot of good things going on. We did have our golf tournament on the 15th of September. Had some suboptimal greens, but we all had a good time, and a lot of people turned out for it, so thankful for that. The Chamber is putting on a women's conference called Elevate Her. Jenny Mars, HGTV, Fixer to Fabulous. She's going to be our keynote speaker. That'll be on November the 10th. We're going to do our Pool of Siloam, which is basically, it's a 20 displays of kind of the life story of Christ around Christmas time. Something that was started in the 50s, went to the 80s, and it was stopped for about 20, 30 years. We're going to bring that back this December. Also, we're going to be having the Chamber's putting on a business plan conference. We're going to give away $5,000 to students, high school / JBU with business plans, and another $5,000 for small business grants. Anyone in the community can apply for those. Deadline for submission is 12/1/23, and we will give out the money on the 15th of December. We're going to have a big hiring event in Silent Springs. 7 public school superintendents have signed on to bring every high school student to Silent Springs. It's going to be about 1,000 kids. We're going to try to get them on March 28th. We'll try to get them hopefully employed by the time they graduate. Basically, some businesses are coming. Basically, we've been able to positively recruit a business from Washington State. They've been in business about 50-something years. They've already found a couple locations. They're moving their operations from Washington State to Silent Springs. That announcement will be public this week. A lot of things going on the 4th Friday, Discover Siloam, Western Benton County Partnership, which we kind of help facilitate. It's everything up and down the 59 corridor, 5 mayors, superintendents, legislators, judges, what have you. We've been able to help facilitate that. A lot of good things going on to help with workforce development, education, among other things too. We do have Delia, who's our executive director for that organization, and a lot of good things going on there. More to come. Do want to close by just saying thank you to the board. Very appreciative for our city administrator, the character he shows, and also for our city board that we have here. Thankful that we have a city board that starts each meeting, and I appreciate Dr. Smiley, just like the other directors, saying the prayers in Jesus' name. So I'm thankful for that. And also thankful that our board voted unanimously to be a pro-life city. So thank you guys very much. A lot of great things going on. More to come. Some we can talk about, some we can't. But those are at least some of the good nuggets. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Anyone else?
I'm going to be like my dad tonight and read from a prepared statement, but it's a good one. Good evening to you all.
Give us your name and address.
Oh, yeah, I got to do that first. I haven't been up here in a while, sorry. Tyler Carroll, 102 South Carl,
Thank you.
right here in Siloam. I've got a story for you. 10 years ago, Allison, my wife, and I made the decision to move a HQ of our business from the West Coast back to our hometown of Siloam Springs, Arkansas. The thought was, 1, to be close to family, and 2, to position our business at what was quickly becoming the crossroads of our country with the growth of Northwest Arkansas. From the side room at Ehrlich Motorworks to remodeling what eventually became the Mural Building on Broadway to becoming the lead developer of the 14,000 square foot development now known as 5 Points, our growth has been both steady and exciting. I'll take a quick beat here to talk about the businesses that are still growing and thriving at 5 Points. Poor John's Coffee and Vinyl took the leap to join 5 Points Project after Casey Letillier and I walked him through an empty building, regaling him with tales of what would soon be Ivoryville Brewing. Well, Chris and Emily may have beaten Casey and Dorothy to their business opening, but both businesses are bringing life to what was essentially a forgotten space. With Megan Fire Robbins' Formata Creative Agency rounding out the old Pontiac dealership, that place is a bustling center of commerce and is indeed special because of the people and businesses that occupy it. I know there's been talk of that special group somehow being appeased with a potential East Main project moving forward, but that's just nonsense language to single out a group of people who are hardworking, community-loving folks. It's gross and it needs to stop. But back onto the good stuff. The Though we were sad to move away from our spot on the intersection of East Main and Washington earlier this summer, we knew that we had to grow our business further and provide the space our team needs to flourish. We needed to move. We were courted by businesses and communities and chambers throughout Northwest Arkansas, as our expansion would mean an almost $5 million investment wherever we set up the new headquarters. Philip Patterson, Don Clark, Stacy Morris, and Arthur Holbert were all instrumental in our final decision to keep it right here in Siloam Springs. I want to take this quick moment to publicly thank each of them for their encouragement and constant advocacy for the business community in our town, because it's to be admired. We settled on another essentially abandoned property that has housed historic businesses in our community dating back to the 1950s, starting with Bear Brand Hosiery and several others to follow. After 8 months of remodel led by local project manager Ben Bergstrom and hiring Northwest Arkansas service providers and craftsmen for the entire project, we are proud to invite friends, clients, and city leaders and members of the public to our grand opening on Friday, October 13th. From the ribbon cutting with the chamber at 10 a.m., coffee and tours all day long, and at 4 p.m., barbecue, ice cream, local brews, bounce houses for the kids, facility tours. Come check it out. I'd like to invite each of you personally, so it's going to just take a quick minute, so I might need a little extra time. Jay, I respect you and what you do for your city, and welcome you to be a part of the celebration. Alan, you've got a big job ahead of you, and I want you to know that the small business community is here to support you. Get on over here and check what's being built. We welcome you. Mindy, you have been a constant encouragement, and we welcome you to join us. Ken's not here tonight. I don't know him very well, but I know he is thoughtful in his decision-making and asks great questions. I think our business could learn a lot from his experience, and he is absolutely welcome. Betsy, TC is located in your district, and I would be honored to personally show you around our new business home. Sorry, I'm shaking. I've had a hard week. Our new business home, and join you in making our district the best it can be. Lisa, you always respond to my emails with thoughtful words and kindness, and I greatly appreciate that. You are welcome to join us on the 13th at any point throughout the day. Madam Mayor, Judy, you have always been a great encourager of me personally and our business since we moved here 10 years ago. Let's print a t-shirt together that day. Renee, always a smile and a hello, always responsible to email inquiries of any variety, and someone who makes this community a better place. Please join us. Reed, you're my dad, and while Allie and I's growth as both business owners and local developers has never benefited you financially, you somehow keep encouraging us to grow and move forward. It's probably because you're my dad. I know you'll be there, but you and Mom are a pretty substantial part of that success, and people need to know that. Carol, when the pandemic hit, you were one of the first people to reach out with encouragement and a helping hand when we needed to figure out how to support our friends and neighbors. I hope you'll come see what encouragement like that can build at the local level. David, you've been in this community longer than most anyone in this room and are part of a family with deep roots in the history and development of this city. I honestly believe, and have said this in groups both large and small, and I'll say it here, the decisions you make and the things you champion as a member of this board are done from the absolute right place, and that place is a heart that loves your community you grew up in and you've chosen to remain in. You may not believe it because we've often been at odds on several community issues, but you are absolutely welcome any point during the day on the 13th. I'll shake your hand, thank you in person for serving our community, and give you the tour of what's kept me so busy during the last year that I haven't had time for much of anything else. You're all welcome to join us for our grand opening at 700 East Granite on Friday, October 13th. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tyler. Anyone else?
What time did he say? I didn't. I'm
The
sorry.
ribbon cutting is at 10 a.m. You can come by any time throughout the day. The barbecue and ice cream starts at 4. Barbecued ice cream.
What it sounded like.
Hello, my name's Bernadette Keck, and I live at 1300 Deerfield Meadow. I'd like to read an email that I sent to the board on behalf of Main Street Siloam Springs. Hello, I hope this email finds the board members well. I'm writing on behalf of Main Street Siloam Springs in the hopes that you will take the time and effort to look at the revitalization efforts this organization has brought to our community over the years. I hope that you will individually research the reinvestment Main Street has made into our community. I remember as a child coming to Siloam Springs with my parents and grandparents. I grew up in between Jay and Concord, so Siloam Springs was what I considered a big town. I remember always going to the downtown area. I began working in Siloam at 16, and during my high school and college years, I saw our downtown almost die. When my husband and I started dating, we would walk through the downtown area, and at times it would feel like almost like a ghost town. I have lived in Siloam for over 20 years now, and I'm thrilled by the recent rebirth of our downtown historic heart. During the 2019 to 2020 year, before the pandemic and during, Main Street partnered with the Chamber and the city to create Discover Siloam Springs. This is the group that brought you the Fourth Friday events this year. Over $25,000 in grant funds were used for historic preservation, downtown improvements, and public art during the 2019-2020 year, along with over $12,000 in building improvements and COVID relief grants, and over $7,000 to SNAP recipients and seniors to use at our farmers market. Fast forward to some of the 2022 accomplishments. Girls' Night Out events were hosted quarterly, allowing an evening of shopping, dining, and fun for the entire family. Main Street won awards last year, bringing recognition to Siloam Springs as being awarded the 2022 Award of Excellence for an outstanding retail promotion for those events. Main Street also won the 2022 Award of Excellence for Outstanding Public Art Project in a single installation for the East Main Street mural. Main Street produced the quarterly Minute in History videos by partnering with the Siloam Springs Museum. 48 online and in-person farmers markets were held last year, participating in the Double Dollar program, which again allowed SNAP and senior voucher recipients to match their spending dollar for dollar. I would hope that sometime you would attend a farmer's market and see the excitement the children participating in the Power of Produce program have when they have the opportunity to pick out and purchase their own food items. Items they might not have at home without this program. These, along with the Gloria McEnroe Building Improvement Grants, the Homegrown Festival, which Stacy mentioned is happening this Saturday. Shoptober.
5 minutes.
Okay. Again, is happening along with Downtown Trick or Treat. I'll wrap it up by saying my date nights are now almost always spent in Siloam Springs. The experiences of live music, dining, and cultural events that for a long time required me to leave Siloam, I can now enjoy in the heart of our town. Main Street and the revitalization efforts this organization have put forth have had a huge hand in our vibrant, Hallmark-esque landscape. I, for one, do not want to return to a time of empty buildings and crumbling facades. I now walk in the footsteps of the generations of people who have lived and loved this town before me, surrounded by the beauty of our wonderful historic landmarks. I implore you to walk our downtown, see the beauty in our history, and take a look at our Main Street program.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If there is not, I would ask if there is anyone here that would like to address an item that is on our consent agenda. There being none, we will move on in the agenda. The next item is a presentation from John Wilkerson, our AML General Counsel. However, he has been delayed and has asked if we would move this presentation to the end of our meeting, giving him an opportunity to be here for this presentation. So, Board, I am asking that you, if I have your approval to do that, so that he will be able to be here for that presentation. So we will then move on to the consent agenda. Item A, regular meeting minutes, September 19, 2023. Item B, pre-agenda meeting minutes, September 27, 2023. Item C, resolution 57-23, waive signage ordinance, approve MOU Runway Group. And I will make a quick note here that the board had requested the sign be moved, and it has been, the spot has been moved to the far east side of that parking lot. Item D, purchase Public Works Department Street Division, Type 2 surface material, Villaview Widening Project, Emery, Sapp and Sons, $73,315. That is the consent agenda. Directors, is there any item that you would like to have removed for further discussion? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is our contracts and, I'm sorry?
Yes.
Forgot him.
Oh. Well, let's not forget Reed. Next is our contracts and approvals. Contract, budget amendment, Sager Creek Drive rebuild with TriStar Contractors, $1,183,656. Kevin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight for your consideration is a contract with TriStar Contractors for the reconstruction of Sager Creek Drive from Hico Street on the west to Lincoln Street on the east, and then a short portion into each of these streets, the residential streets to the north. So staff is recommending approval of the contract in the amount of $1,183,656, and staff is available for any questions.
Thank you. Directors, any questions or comments for Kevin?
I have a question. So, are you going to be able to go up into the, what I call the bird streets any at all? I know the Sager Creek Drive, that area is pretty bad off, but so are some of the streets off of it.
Yes, so with this project, we'll go just barely up into each of those to where the curve radius stops. It gives us a better product in the future when we come back through. So essentially, we'll be looking at the first probably 20 feet or so into each of these. And then I believe in next year's budget, we're requesting money to do each of the streets within the subdivision.
I do know that section right there at Sager Creek and Meadowlark is just especially bad, but I think what you're doing will help that. And then I'm glad to know that's in the budget for next year. We can fix the bird streets.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
I
Karen.
know, I don't have any questions. I know that the citizens are going to be really excited about this because it's been a problem area for a while. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the contract for Sager Creek Drive rebuild? There is not, so directors, if you have no questions or comments at this time, I'll ask for a motion to approve the contract with the budget amendment for TriStar Contractors.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Contract is approved. Next is Ordinance 23-23, first reading, amending City Municipal Code, Chapter 102 zoning, GI zone. Ben?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. Let me get the slide up here. All right, there we are. So, yes, before you is a code amendment to address lot coverage issues in the GI zone. That's the General Institutional Zone District. And this is specifically addressing lots that are fronting along a principal arterial street, which in Siloam Springs, that's only Highway 412. The request is increasing the lot coverage from 60% to 80% for lots meeting certain criteria. The lot abutting the principal arterial, as I mentioned, Highway 412. And the second is that the lot would be 3 acres or less in size. Most of the zoning along Highway 412 is C2, which allows for an 80% lot coverage by right. However, lots in the GI zone are only permitted the 60% lot coverage due to assumption that some GI zones could be nestled in within residential neighborhoods. For GI uses in neighborhoods, it would be more appropriate to keep the 60% lot coverage for consistency with the residential built environment. However, staff believes that increasing to 80% for construction along a highway would better facilitate the full use of the property on smaller lots, consistent with commercial zoning along Highway 412. For larger lots over 3 acres, we would keep to the same 60%. As those larger lots typically would have more room to negotiate, so they're not needing to go all the way up to 80%. I would note that I did check, and most of the lots along Highway 412 are at that 3 acres or less in size, so this would fit in with the built environment along Highway 412. The Planning Commission did review this, and they voted in favor of the change unanimously. And to date, we have not received any public comments on the code change, and we're available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Directors, comments or questions for Ben? There being none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this ordinance? There is not. I will come back to the directors. I am asking for a motion to place ordinance 23-23 on its first reading, suspending the rules, reading title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Kistler.
Yeah, was that me?
Yes. Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Alan?
Ordinance number 23-23, an ordinance amending chapter 102 of the municipal code with respect to general institutional zone building limits.
Thank you. So at this time, we have our staff reports, and I noticed that Mr. Wilkerson is here, but has had to step back out apparently for a minute. So we'll move on to the staff reports. And that is you. Looks like first is discussion of the Main Street Siloam Springs contract and veto resolutions.
Yes, in front of you in your packets board, I thought it'd be a good time to bring a discussion to see any changes that you would like to make with both resolutions you have in front of you. I've met with you individually, most of you. I have noted some changes that will be stricken. But again, if there's any other discussion, Mr. Wilkerson is here tonight to answer questions about either resolution and any changes that what the board would like to make.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have some information that's just come out from the Attorney General, and I made a copy. So this is now the second Attorney General opinion regarding the use of vetoing a non-action, which I'd like to remind people cannot be done anywhere else in the United States. So for the public record, here's what the Attorney General says. You recently requested my opinion on whether a mayor in a city administrator form of government may veto a motion that failed for lack of a majority vote, and thereby reverse and overturn the Board of Directors' failed action. In opinion number 2023-047, I responded to your request saying that mayors lack the authority to veto a failed action. Since that opinion was issued, I have become aware of additional information that was part of the background for your request, and I write this opinion as a follow-up to address that additional information and provide further reasoning in support of my earlier conclusion. And by the way, sorry, this letter was sent to State Representative Haak Duke. I now understand that your question was prompted, at least in part, by an argument that the General Assembly has given the mayor in a city administrator form of government an extraordinary and unique veto power under ACA 14-48, 111B1. Such mayors have the power of veto over all decisions made by the Board of Directors, except matters relative to city personnel. Someone has claimed that by using the phrase all decisions, the legislature has authorized mayors to veto motions that fail to pass because that failure reflects a decision of the city's Board of Directors. I will refer to this argument as the failed action argument. I write here to address this novel legal argument, which is mistaken for at least 4 independent reasons. It, 1, ignores the rules that tell us whether the board has made a decision. 2, it ignores the rules that tell us what decision the board has made. 3, conflicts with the rules that govern how to interpret statutes. And 4, conflicts with the function a mayor has in a city administrator form of government. 1, the failed action argument ignores the rules that govern whether a deliberative body has made a decision. This argument misunderstands what it means for a deliberative body to make decisions. Under ACA 14-48 111B1, the mayor's veto power extends to all decisions made by the board. Under ACA 1448 120 A2, any action, any decision of the board requires an affirmative vote of 4 or more members in order for the board to make any kind of decision that could be subject to a veto. That decision would require an affirmative vote of at least 4 board members. As Robert's rules make clear, the requirement of a majority vote is standard parliamentary procedure. In any decision by a deliberative assembly, the opinion of each member present has equal weight as expressed by vote, through which the voting member joins in assuming direct personal responsibility for the decision should his or her vote be on the prevailing side. This is also standard practice in all forms of city governance in Arkansas. This rule is necessary because a motion, resolution, or ordinance might fail for many different reasons, some of which do not reflect the will of the board at all. Consider this example. Suppose a board meeting has been called, but 2 of the 7 board members are absent. At the meeting, a motion is made and seconded, but it fails to pass because it receives only 3 votes in favor and 2 against. What decision has the board made? While the 2 people who voted against can be said to have decided against the motion, their decisions can hardly be said to be a decision made by the board. The vote against the motion is their individual decision. The same goes for the 3 who voted in favor of the motion. The board cannot be said to decide anything unless at least 4 board members vote in favor of a motion. But the failed action argument ignores these facts and instead shifts the focus from the statutory majority vote requirement to the opinions of a minority of board members. This improper focus is contrary to general parliamentary procedure and directly contrary both to 14-48-111B1's focus on decisions made by the board and to 14-48-120A2's majority vote requirement. 2, the failed action argument ignores the rules that govern what the board has decided. In addition to ignoring the rules that govern whether the board has made a decision, the failed action argument also ignores the rules that govern what that decision is. Nearly every deliberative body uses some form of parliamentary procedure to 1, conduct its meetings, 2, propose items for consideration and decision, and 3, determine which items are appropriate to vote on at any given time. To achieve these ends, many deliberative bodies adopt some form of Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules and nearly any bylaws or policies that adopt similar rules, deliberative bodies use motions to arrive at decisions. The motion process puts something before the deliberative body, a motion, a resolution, an ordinance, to discuss and decide. If the board decides to adopt the resolution or ordinance, motion, resolution, or ordinance, then its contents reflect the board's decision. If the motion, resolution, or ordinance proposes that the board's decision be X and it passes, then the board's decision is X. But the failed action argument ignores this in favor of a chaotic and unworkable standard. Under that argument, if the motion, resolution, or ordinance proposed that the board's decision be X and it failed for lack of a majority vote, then the board's decision is not X. When followed to its logical conclusion, this result requires the city to carefully track and record all failed motions, resolutions, and ordinances because their contradictories would now be just as binding as if they had received a majority vote. and every such law would have been enacted by only a minority of the board. This chaotic and unworkable scenario is the direct result of the failed action argument, ignoring the rules governing how one identifies what the board has decided. 3. The failed action argument conflicts with the rules that govern the interpretation of statutes. The failed action argument conflicts with 3 foundational rules that govern how statutes are read. One such rule is the supremacy of the text canon, which states, the words of a governing text are of paramount concern, and what they convey in their context is what the text means. When carefully studying a statute's text, the ordinary meaning canon requires one to give words their ordinary and usually accepted meaning in common language. And under the harmonious reading canon, when 2 or more statutes regulate the same subject matter, one is required to read these statutes harmoniously if their texts allow it. The failed action argument conflicts with these standards. First, the argument mistakenly gives the word veto a meaning that is beyond its ordinary and accepted meaning. Under 14-48-111b1, the mayor has the power of veto over all decisions made by the board. The use of the definite article here indicates that the statute is using the word veto in its ordinary way. When used in common parlance as a verb, as it is in 14-48-111b1, veto means to prevent or delay a legislative bill from becoming law. The legal meaning of veto is no different. Latin, I forbid. Power of one governmental branch to prohibit an action by another branch, especially a chief executive's refusal to sign into law a bill passed by the legislature. Both definitions indicate that the veto is a power to stop something from becoming law. The failed action argument, however, conflicts with this common meaning of veto by claiming that the mayor can veto a motion that will never become law. This interpretation of veto is inconsistent with the ordinary meaning canon. Second, the failed action argument gives the word decision a meaning that violates the requirements that we, 1, read words in context, and 2, read statutes on the same subject matter harmoniously. As used in context, the decisions that may be vetoed are decisions of the board. As noted above in sections 1 and 2, this phrase necessitates that the decisions represent the opinions of a majority on the board, not a minority. Since the failed action argument allows a minority opinion of the board to be considered a decision of the board, the argument takes the term decisions out of context and violates the rules of interpretation. That interpretation of decision also violates the harmonious reading canon because it fails to take account of ACA 14-48-120, which also addresses the veto. Section 14-48-120 explains the mayor's involvement in the board's decision-making. Under 14-48-120E, the mayor has no role in the board's legislation until the board has adopted something. Section 14-48-120G details how ordinances, resolutions, motions adopted by the board are presented to the mayor for signature or veto. There is no provision anywhere in this statute that contemplates the board arriving at a decision due to a failed vote. The failed action argument presents a view of board decision making that conflicts with procedures established elsewhere in 14-48-120. Therefore, the argument is inconsistent with the harmonious reading canon. The failed action argument conflicts with the mayoral power in a city administrator form of government. The foregoing 3 sets of arguments are bolstered by the mayor's role in a city administrator form of government. Among all the forms of city government available in Arkansas, the city administrator form of government vests the mayor with the least power over legislation. That is because, unlike the mayor in a city council form of government or a city manager form of government, the mayor in a city administrator form of government cannot vote on motions, resolutions, or ordinances. But the failed action argument reads, the veto power is if it gave the mayor not just one vote, but a sufficient number of votes to cause any motion to pass. This gives the mayor in a city administrator form of government more power than any mayor in any other form of government. This type of action is so unprecedented, one would expect the statute to clearly spell out this extraordinary power, but it does not. The failed action argument is inconsistent with the entire structure of a city administrator form of government. 5, in conclusion, at its core, the failed action argument errs by taking the phrase all decisions out of context and giving the term veto a meaning that I have not been able to find anywhere in American law. While I continue to stand by the reasoning and conclusions in my prior opinion, I wanted to augment it based on new information. Deputy Attorney General Orion Owsley prepared this opinion, which I hereby approve. Tim Griffin. So basically, we now have two Attorney General opinions saying that the mayoral veto was unlawful. It was not right. And at this point, if there are people who still think it was lawful and it wasn't government overreach, then maybe we do need to go to a judge to decide this.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So when Alan asked about what changes we would like to see on the resolutions that are being presented, for me, the resolution regarding, I think this is two different subjects. I think that we have an issue with the veto, and then we have an issue with Main Street. And it's not an issue with Main Street, it's just how do we prevent a lawsuit? And so it's not Main Street's fault that we are in this position. And so we can't blame Main Street, but so we need to settle. They've already been paid off of a invalid contract, and I will call it that. Even as a representative of our community, we have too much proof and too many legal people saying, no, you can't do this. We need to come up with a resolution that divides the two. If you're going to keep the two together, it's either you say everything about the veto or nothing about the veto. So that resolution that's out there states about the veto and its standing. But if you're going to put it out there, then you need to say the whole story. You need to say AML did not agree. You need to say the AG did not agree. And now you need to say the AG even came back even further and said, let me give you more law to clarify what you should know. And so I want to see a resolution for Main Street that clears them the money for the money that they have been paid. That's one issue. The second issue we need to look at is we need to define and vote if we want to continue a contract, do another contract. That's two separate things. They should not be combined. And then we have a resolution on the veto. And that's how I think it should be. And I'm okay, if you're going to do the veto on the resolution for Main Street, then you tell the whole story. I don't believe in partial stories. I think that's lying to the citizens, and we've covered up enough. I think it's drugged Main Street out, it's drugged us out, it's had people attack us when they didn't really fully understand what was going on when we were trying to protect their rights. And it is frustrating. I do want us to move on, but people have said, well, everybody knows you're right. Yes, I'm right. That's not what I care about. It's not about being right. It's about doing right. And so at this point, we need to find a resolution for each of those that work for each of those. And the resolution for the Main Street should be two different things. One is about the past money, and two is about any further contracts. That's where I stand.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David.
I would like to, since this is open for discussion, review the proposed resolution that was on the first agenda for tonight and how I believe it was so improperly written to include the veto and the Main Street solution. A resolution ratifying and approving 2023 Main Street Siloam Springs payments made to date. Whereas the Siloam Springs Board of Directors appropriated funding for its annual contract with Main Street Siloam Springs for the 2023 fiscal year on November 15, 2022. Whereas renewal of the annual contract between the city and Main Street was presented to the Board of Directors at its regular meeting of December 6, 2022. Both of these are correct. Whereas by a vote of 3 in favor and 2 opposed, with 2 absences, the proposed renewal was defeated. This point is unnecessary for a resolution that's trying to fix a problem. Whereas in order to provide an opportunity for the full board to vote on the measure, Mayor Nation vetoed the board decision not to renew. Again, this is completely unnecessary, and we have certainly understood and heard that this was illegal. Whereas the measure was presented to the board at its next regular meeting, December 20th, 2022. Whereas at said meeting, a motion was made to override the mayor's veto, but died for lack of a second, allowing the veto to stand and the contract renewal to proceed. Again, I don't understand why this would be included when we have learned that this was an illegal action. The mayor's veto was illegal, and that's why there was no second made. It was stated at the meeting that Clint Lancaster was here, that was the reason there was no second to bring it to a vote, because it was understood that the veto was an illegal veto. On top of that, we've heard that the mayor cannot approve money being spent on her own, and that was what is included in this paragraph. Whereas controversy regarding the legal effect of the veto has called the contract renewal with Main Street and payments made in accordance therewith into question. And whereas, and here's the one that gets me, in order to remove any doubt about the legality of said payments, the board wishes to affirm and ratify the expenditures made to date, reserving the questions of termination of the remainder of the contract and any future payments. I was stunned that our city attorney would write this, frankly. Because this board has said it, and I will repeat it, we have no interest whatsoever in reserving a question of termination of the remainder of this contract or any future payments. I believe this board's goal and plan has been to always fulfill the payments throughout this year. I don't believe there's any question that that is the plan, and that's what was always planned. But for this to be written as is simply covering the actions, illegal that they may be, by our city administrator and our city attorney. And it is most certainly frustrating to hear in the meeting with the Attorney Lancaster to point out that the AML agreed with the argument that this was against state law. The AG wrote an argument, gave an opinion, and the Supreme Court had already ruled on this. We now have a 4-page letter that is a second follow-up of the AG opinion, and it's pretty obvious as you read this letter. I highlighted a lot of part of it. It's pretty obvious the AG's pretty hacked off at whoever could conceivably think that this state law read this way. And for us to hear Clint Lancaster make these points that all of these people have agreed this was an illegal action, and to hear our city attorney say, I don't care. It's just an opinion. My opinion is right, and that's what has to happen. It is shocking to read this follow-up resolution that was presented to us. It's dumbfounding.
Madam Mayor.
Reed?
Jay, I value your opinion. I'd like to hear your thoughts, please.
All right, since you ask, I'm familiar with the new Attorney General's opinion. I still don't agree with their bottom line. I will say I know Ryan Owsley. He's a great attorney. He's a good writer. And I respect the fact that in this opinion, at least, they attempted to address the arguments regarding the legality of the mayor's veto. I do believe that they have the law they cite is good. I believe they've misapplied it in several instances, and that again, that the bottom line conclusion is wrong. And I can go through point by point. I'm not prepared to do that right now, but I will put that in writing, and I will send that to the board. As far as the resolution that was presented, I stand by that 100%. We have recounted what happened. Again, board may or may not agree with what happened, but it's what happened, and it's everything that I put in there is factual. The vote on the resolution is absolutely in no way a referendum on whether the veto was proper or improper. It is simply to authorize the payments that were made, so that it's the new vote that removes the question of their legality. It has nothing to do with whether the veto, whether it was legal to begin with or it was not. It is the new vote that is required to make sure that there is not a question about their legality, and that's all it is. Yeah, I really have nothing other to say other than that. My job is to offer the board my honest, professional opinion, regardless of how popular that opinion may be, regardless of how many other people may agree or may disagree with me. If I fail to do that, I am doing a disservice to this board and to the community. I have no authority whatsoever to force my opinion on anybody. This board can give my opinion whatever level of weight it chooses. That is entirely up to the board. But I have offered my opinion. I have offered a resolution to fix the legal issue, which the board said it wanted to do, and I stand by that.
And Jay, when, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Reed?
Jay, when you wrote this resolution, did you run this by anyone outside of the city?
I did not.
Okay.
Well, let me say this. After it was written, we did send it copies of both this resolution and the resolution prepared by Mr. Lancaster to the AML to review. Say the feedback I received from there was that the resolution I prepared made sense. It would be in the interest of the board to pass it, and would not be in the board's interest to pass the resolution prepared by Mr. Lancaster. But Mr. Wilkerson is here. He can certainly expand upon that.
Thank you, Jay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Betsy.
A few things. We are dealing with two separate issues, which we probably need to separate and discuss one at a time, possibly. Just FYI, the Attorney General opinion is on his website, as well as all of the references. I do not care for the resolution that our city attorney wrote. I think I agree with Director Rissler that it needs to have all the information, or it shouldn't include the veto and Main Street, or it has the entire story, not choose bits and pieces to put on there. The other thing that we seem to be ignoring, which I understand because it's uncomfortable for me to say this, but passing a resolution was not the only requirement in the letter from Mr. Lancaster. He also said his client required an apology from the mayor, and I would like to hear from the mayor on what her intent is and how she feels.
I think it's very unfortunate that we are at the crossroads that we are, and that what has happened has transpired. My intent, whenever I vetoed this item, first of all, came about because I had calls. I had people in the grocery store, people at the gas station, people at church, people everywhere I went, asking me if there was anything that would bring this back before the board for a vote. Based on those questions from our citizens, who I represent, just like all the rest of you, prompted me to ask if there was anything that could be done. I was given advice by Jay that, yes, the mayor always has veto power. So, that is what transpired. I asked for a veto. My intent in bringing the veto was to simply ask that this board reconsider the Main Street contract. That did not happen, obviously, and so here we are. As far as an apology from the mayor, I have spoken with some of the attorneys at AML, and at least at this point in time, they have advised me that I should not sign or do anything at this point in time. So that's where we stand.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I think you bring up a really good point when you talk about your intention. And I think that is what is so disheartening about this whole issue for me. That spending the last 10 months seemingly trying to figure out how we can say something is wrong and illegal implies that there was malicious intent behind the decisions that were made. And I don't believe that was the case. So I'm very disheartened. I feel like we've spent a lot of time on this. I am very interested in Mr. Wilkerson's opinion, if you don't mind being put on the spot. You may have come on a bad night. But I appreciate your words, and I really think that means that's kind of sums it up to me, that if I feel like there were people that were just out to do the wrong thing and out to break the law, yeah, I get the frustrations. I don't think that's what was going on here. Maybe it doesn't matter in the court of law, but I would appreciate your enlightenment.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say, every time I come down here, the downtown just looks better and better. You've done a great job in downtown. It's beautiful. So a couple of things. I'm not sure where you want me to start, but I'll start with the apology. Listen, I would never advise a city to offer an apology, especially this early on and whatever's happening. You know, there's the issue, and that really leads to the biggest issue I have with this right now, is that, you know, I know a lot has been talked about how the league agrees with Mr. Lancaster and the AG, and Ron Owsley is terrific, by the way, and I cannot argue with a single word he said in that memo. And y'all know where we stand on the power of the mayor to veto this particular action. But I will note this, and the reason I'm very hesitant to even consider a apology is the way that Mr. Lancaster has phrased the issue. He says that after the board voted down the appropriation, the mayor vetoed it. And back to your point, Councilwoman, Board Member Rissler, this is two very different issues. This is not necessarily an appropriation issue. You already appropriated the money in November, and so the vote that was taken was not an appropriation. So these are two very different issues. So my concern about apologizing or admitting something was illegal is that we're really focusing on the wrong, well, not the wrong issue. You're right to focus on all the issues, but they're not as easily meshed together as was the veto illegal and thus was this an illegal exaction, which is really the issue that you're faced with from a legal liability standpoint is, was this an illegal exaction? And that is a very different question than whether or not the veto is proper, because again, the money for the contract was appropriated in November. Now you can make the argument that what you did was de-appropriate the money, but that's not what you did. There was a resolution to give the mayor the power to sign the contract, and you said no. That's what happened. So again, I don't disagree with Mr. I can't say I agree with Mr. Lancaster's all of his language in this letter, of course, but it's the characterization of this as an appropriation motion that really bothers me the most. So when you're discussing whether or not to apologize or say sorry in the context of this being an appropriation motion, that's probably the number one reason I would say, whoa, let's pump the brakes, because that's not really the proper context of what happened.
Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question. When you say appropriations, didn't we approve this in our budget?
Yeah, by law, a board and a city administrative form of government, when you pass the budget, you are appropriating the money. That's the verbiage in state law. So yes, the money was appropriated.
So we
We're
were
not
already,
guaranteeing the money. We're not guaranteeing the money. It's a budget.
no, but we were approving
Yes.
a budget that allowed this money to go to
Correct.
Main Street.
Now, and that's where I was talking to Jay earlier today. That's where we get into what we call city law. You have your own way of doing things, and apparently the way y'all do things is you appropriate the money, then you present the contract again. But again, that's the way y'all have done things. But from a legal standpoint, the money was appropriated in November,
It was appropriated in a budget.
which is an appropriation of the
It
money.
is a budget, as all budgets are, a guideline.
Well, I can only tell you this, sir. It is an appropriation under the law,
But
by
there's-
statute.
But there's no contract signed by passing a budget.
Yeah, and so here's the issue, right? Is that this is really kind of, there's no case law on this particular issue. This is a very novel issue.
Except precedence.
Well, no, there's no precedence
Well,
about.
for us, there is precedence.
Oh, correct. Yes,
the-
correct. That's the
the
city law.
previous yearly
Yeah.
interaction.
No,
Yes.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But that's city law, and I use that term colloquially. But as whether or not that the expenditure of the money after the whatever happened, whether it wasn't an illegal exaction, I could certainly make the argument that it wasn't. I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm just saying I could certainly make the argument that it wasn't because you did appropriate the money in November.
But the way it was handled clearly states in the AG letter, as Jay has made an argument in the past, as he did in the newspaper article, that the city administrative form of government has an extraordinary power for the mayor that's not on any other administrative form of government, no other level. It's mind-boggling to think that anyone would ever believe that a mayor has a power to veto a non-action.
I don't think that he or she does. I agree with you 100%.
So my argument that I was making a moment ago is that when we have heard all of the arguments so far, and to have a city attorney say, none of that matters, my argument is what matters. And he said that in the meeting with Mr. Lancaster. It is more than infuriating to see the resolution come up and him now state that the veto doesn't have anything to do with it. Then why was it brought up? We were discussing the Main Street funding and approving what has been paid so far, and hopefully approving what will be paid the rest of the year. So to delineate all these different points of what occurred in city board meetings and has now been proven to be against state law, I'll say against state law instead of illegal. But
to delineate those things within the resolution, I just don't get what is the point of that, except to cover himself for making the bad advice to our city, to our mayor. I said it in a board meeting. I never believed that there was ever any malicious intention, if that's the word you want to use, that I believed our mayor got bad advice, that our mayor was doing what she was advised to do, and that I believed our city staff gave the wrong advice. And it has been proven time and time again that no matter what is found at the state level by the most, well, literally the highest law enforcement person in the state, that none of that matters because we've been told that's just an opinion. Just as Jay has an opinion, this is the AG's opinion, and it's just an opinion. When state Supreme Court has been brought into it, it's pretty important to consider that maybe somebody locally might be wrong, and that maybe the buku amount of attorneys at the state level might be right.
You're debating with me whether the veto is proper. I'm not debating that fact. Just to be clear, what I'm saying is that, and by the way, I want to make this clear. I'm not neutral. I am pro-City of Siloam Springs. So I want to do what's best for the City of Siloam Springs. And when I look at what Mr. Lancaster was asking, what you're saying now, I got to point out that Mr. Owsley never once mentioned the word appropriation in his opinion, nor should he have. I'm not suggesting that he should have. He was asked a very particular question.
True.
Mr. Owsley, the one that wrote the A.G. Griffin's opinion. It's a terrific opinion, as Ron Owsley is known to do. But again, what I'm trying to say is that the issue of an appropriation is all I'm trying to say. And so not to really, I can't speak for Jay because I'm not Jay. But when I read the resolution, first of all, honestly, the whereas clauses, okay, whatever. I care about the be it resolved part. And the be it resolved part said what it needs to say. And so my opinion is this resolution does the job that I believe needs to be done for the City of Siloam Springs. And I would do it as soon as you can. That's my advice to you. This is not my city. You do what you want. But when I read the whereas clauses, I took it as what Jay was doing is reciting what had happened. And at the same time, sort of inherently sort of showing that this is a complicated issue without also going down the road of saying the city acted illegally, which you do not want him to do. And so I think
then don't put them in the resolution.
That is whatever y'all decide.
Points he made were against state law.
Yeah, I am not debating that issue with you at all.
And I believe all along, from day one of the disagreement of Main Street, that the decision was taken out of this board's hands to resolve. I believe the entire board and the mayor all along from beginning have just wanted to follow the rule of law. I've been told by so many people around the city, you've got to follow the rule of law. State law, city law, whatever it is, you cannot make an adjustment or bend the rule because the mayor is given some bad advice or because Main Street is so supported by somebody. You have to follow the rule of law to everybody. And never has this board ever felt there was malicious intent on anyone's part, most certainly not the mayor. And as I said, I think bad advice was given. It's frustrating to hear that the giver of that bad advice still believes that he's in the right.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to ask you are cautious about asking Judy to apologize. And I disagree with Director Hunt. I've had many people say she did not do that intentionally, that she got bad advice. And I think you've heard that in board meetings too. So I think that's maybe a stir, but
No.
I think the reality, I'm still speaking.
I'm sorry.
The reality is, I think a lot of people have come to me and said, Judy's a Christian. And it's obvious a mistake was made. And we all make mistakes. Every person in this room has made a mistake. It's when you dig your heels in and you don't apologize. And I think the thing that has upset people is because Judy is a Christian. And we are taught as Christians to apologize for our mistakes. And I think that's where the apology is wanted. I don't think it's because people think Judy is an evil person, because what evil are they going to have on her? I mean, they know her as a Christian lady in our community. And so what do you say if that is the angle, is that because Christians have been hurt by this? And this is the type of community we have. So that's what I've been approached with, and I don't think anybody thinks bad of Judy.
Madam Mayor, I do need to clarify that. When I said I think the intentions were not malicious, by anyone involved in any of this process, not just by the mayor. I understand that you have felt that she was given bad advice. I don't think there were malicious intentions behind the bad advice. If it was bad advice, not
Doesn't affect the apology.
not just.
That doesn't affect
But
the
I did
apology.
want to clarify. I'm
I
not
think
just.
that when you look at the law, and we had said it from day one, whenever the decision came back, when AML said that this was not right, but they're leaving it up to Jay, the legislative power then switched from us to Jay, and it never was given back to us on this. And then a contract was signed illegally because it should have never been signed. When your legislative body said no, and then all kinds of lies came out of it, and attacks came out of it. But I think that the apology isn't about people thinking Judy's a bad person. I don't think they think Judy's a bad person. And from that perspective, how do you say, I can't apologize?
I'm just saying I wouldn't advise it as a lawyer because, we're sort of stuck with once an apology is made and depending on the verbiage of the apology, right? And that's what I'm trying to say earlier is that when you look at Mr. Lancaster's letter, the context of it or the fundamental nature of it is that it was an appropriation that was denied and it wasn't. And so now I'm stuck questioning, what is she apologizing for? What do you want her to apologize for?
Well, she did do a veto, and
I know, and I recognize that. But what I'm saying is if you apologize under the terms that Mr. Lancaster has provided, I would worry that you're in essence saying, yep, the city was illegal, and this is an illegal exaction, which I don't think is what you're saying because it's not. I think there's a good argument that it's not. So, if she wants to apologize for whatever reason she wants to apologize for, it's fine. But when I was asked whether or not I wouldn't. Because again, I don't know what she's apologizing for right now because under the context of the letter, it's as if she vetoed a non-appropriation, I guess, is what the argument is. And so then you're like, what are you apologizing for? And so then if it does end up in a lawsuit, which I hope that it wouldn't, and surely it wouldn't, you're sort of stuck with the apology for something that we're not quite sure of what it is that we're apologizing for. I get the veto part. I get that. But that's my concern as a lawyer representing you or thinking about your best interests.
So what does this do if we approve this for Main Street? Because it should be. Because we've already paid them, and it would be wrong. It's just like paying an employee that's done work and you don't pay them. You got to pay Main Street for the work they've done.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you pass a resolution that says be it resolved that we approve this
right.
and move on.
The thing on the resolution to me, you've told half the story. When you've told half the veto, you told half the story. I'm tired of half stories. I want whole stories. I want the community to know the whole truth, not part of the truth or your version of the truth, the whole truth.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on the idea of having a separate, resolution. I understand that concept completely, especially considering it's causing this much consternation.
But when we do the resolution, what does that do for the legality of protecting, because Judy and Jay and Philip, when they went ahead with this and moved forward, even though you gave advice that, no, you can't do that, and AML gave advice, no, you can't do that, and then now they're even, you can tell, aggravated.
Well, so the issue is going to be from a leg audit perspective, and so, if the city expends money that's not authorized to be spent, I mean, you can amend the budget whenever you want to, before the end of the year, of course. So you can certainly make the amendment to the budget and say, okay, or not amending the budget, you're approving reapproving the appropriation. Again, I mean, the argument could be made that it's appropriated, and so there's really maybe not even a reason to do it at all, but it does clarify this. So I would definitely recommend doing it to clarify this and putting an end to this, because it has been 10 months of this. And I think that passing the resolution to definitively say we're authorizing the expenditure of the money that's already been expended, and we're going no further if you want to say that too, that's fine with y'all, it's up to y'all. I think that would put an end to this from a legal perspective and from, well, hopefully a political perspective as well. But certainly from a legal perspective, passing the resolution would just end it. in my opinion, based on what my understanding of this, which is pretty good.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Betsy, and then we'll come to you, Carol.
Okay. It does say in his letter that his issue was that with that type veto, she became the legislative branch rather than the executive branch.
Right.
I think, to me, that's would be part of the apology, which I will say, I've said twice in board meetings, and I wrote a letter specifically to the mayor that I don't think there was anything malicious. I've never heard anything malicious. I don't blame her at all. I think she's a great person. So, but I'm curious if this goes to court. AML, who will defend us, has already said and had their entire office of attorneys watch, which is why I asked you recently, how many attorneys is that? You said 8. How do you defend something that you said was wrong?
Again, you're asking me one question in a multi-layered issue. So can I defend the veto, whether the veto is right or wrong? I suppose so. I mean, I get Jay's argument. We disagreed with it, of course, but I get the decision. It does say you can veto all decisions, and that's really not the same law as it is for city council forms of government. So I kind of see where he was going. Again, we disagreed with it. But that issue is not the issue. When you're talking about an illegal exaction, you're talking about the improper expenditure of money. And so I would go back to November and say, look, the city appropriated the money, and the argument could be that, and I hate litigating a case in front of everybody, but since you're asking, the argument would be that the city allocated the money or appropriated the money. There was never a motion to de-appropriate the money. There was never a budget amendment to change the dollar amount that was given to Main Street in 2023. And so my argument would be, look, they spent it properly. Now, back to your point and the city law point, that is not the way you've done it in past. So I can see the other argument's going to be, well, you didn't abide by your own policies and procedures. But from a state law perspective, I think there's a really good argument that it was not an illegal exaction. And that's why, but that doesn't change the fact that I think the resolution would be proper, because that would give my ultimate defense. And if you're ready to do it, then that, to me, ends any potential lawsuit.
I am good with signing a resolution that okays the money, just not the one that we have in front of us.
Sure.
And I know this is dragged on in part because it took a long time to get the Attorney General opinion. And some people are probably wondering, why is this a big deal? I'm also a citizen, and I don't like big government, and I detest government overreach and government doing illegal things that you all and I are not allowed to do. And that's what happened here. And this is why it is such a big deal to me to not allow this precedence to be set. Because how do y'all feel? When you get in trouble, I'm not in trouble because I'm the government. It's not right. So that's why this is such a big deal. It's not about the Main Street money. I think they should be, the resolution, not that one, but another one, should be signed. It's not their fault. They accepted it in good faith. That's it. But as far as the veto happening again, it was wrong. We shouldn't be allowed to break the law. And you can say it's not breaking the law, then let's send it to a court. I'm, at this point, if that's what it takes, then I'm fine with it.
I think Carol was next.
Carol, yes.
Have all the payments been made, or is there still money out there on that contract?
Back in the meeting when Mr. Lancaster was here that night, everything was put on hold and no payment's been made since.
So the last quarter or whatever has not been paid?
That is correct.
Okay, so there's been 3 quarters of payments made?
That is correct.
Okay.
2 quarters. Yes, right. We had the quarter will start, and then that new quarter will start in November or October, November, December. So actually 2 quarters behind.
Quarters.
By the end of the year, we will be 2 quarters behind.
Okay. funding of Main Street has always been kind of controversial from day one. I'm not sure why, because I do feel that they do contribute to the city, but I'm not an attorney. I don't know anything about how to interpret this resolution. I just know that I feel that Main Street plays an extremely important part in contributing to our downtown vitality, which I believe downtown vitality is important to keeping our city going. If you don't have a surviving downtown, you don't have a really good city. Now, where the money comes into play, then that's the decision that we need to make, whether it's right and do the right thing. And I do want to do what is lawful, what is right.
Madam Mayor, after, sorry.
I'm sorry?
No, I thought you were done, sorry. was
I
just
am,
gonna speak.
go ahead.
David?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I think that was the second belief on this board's part, that we didn't want a precedent set that long after all of us are gone, that a future mayor can look back on this and say, well, it was done here. We've had the AG point out that this was never, ever an intent of state law, and that the harmonious argument Jay made of the two state laws being in harmony is completely not in tune, and that it is completely, the way he looks at it, disharmonious. But, you know, I said in a board meeting that nowhere, I didn't believe anywhere in any American law at any state would he be able to find the interpretation he made of a mayor veto being as he interpreted it. That was pointed out in the AG letter. I said that there was no possibility of a mayor having this power in this form of government, and I said it before, that when I was mayor, I researched all the bits and pieces of being a mayor, and that I fully understood that in the city administrator form of government, the mayor had the least amount of power. And the reason that came about was because of the abuse of power that the mayor had in the mayor-council form of government before the citizens themselves voted to change. I highly doubt that the public would have voted to go from a situation that we had a headline on the Herald Democrat newspaper every week about the violations of the job that was going on with the mayor job, to suddenly vote to something that gives some extraordinary power form of government that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so it still blows my mind that we can have anyone believe that this extraordinary power of veto was specifically decided by state statute many, many years ago when they set up the city administrator form of government. And I also did say in a previous board meeting, this was a legal exaction. When money is funded, paid without board approval, when a contract is presented, and on top of that, state law says only signature by the mayor on a contract. And our city administrator was told that by city staff when he signed it. He said, I don't care. I signed it and I'm going to stick by it. So he violated the state law. He knew he violated the state law. And I believe that's why he later in February tried to come back and have us vote it again to cover this whole mess up. My argument all along has been follow the law, no precedents being set. And honestly, if it had been followed by the law of going and allowing the 2-week time frame that was between board meetings to allow a reconsideration or to request it properly, then maybe it would have been differently. But I honestly believe that if our mayor, as she said, was asked for she asked for advice based upon the citizens' input to her, if our city attorney had done the job of saying, no, this is illegal, it's not allowed, if he had told our city administrator that, we would not be in this situation today. This mess of 10 months, if all the proper interpretation had been applied. And I hate it. I hate that it has caused controversy. I'm still a little confused, Jay, or John, or Alan, on what payments have been made to Main Street and what haven't. And if there's one that's due now, we need to get them paid.
Director, right before Mr. Lancaster came, I think a payment was due. That payment was stopped.
I thought that was the third quarter.
No, I was given direction, sir, to stop payments until this situation was resolved. So since that time, it's been going on 5 weeks. Now we're getting another quarter is coming up that will be due. So we'll actually be 2 quarters behind by the end of the year.
Are they paid at the end of the quarter?
Or paid quarterly.
But
So-
quarterly, are they paid at the end of the
I
quarter? for
believe the Main
previous
Street
work?
director is here, maybe she could tell
I
us.
was going to ask if there's something that we could explain. Is it prepaid or postpaid? So after the 3 months?
Submitted our third quarter invoice
Stacy,
yesterday.
if you'll come to the mic, please.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. Thank you, Stacy.
Yes, I just submitted our third quarter invoice and report yesterday.
But it would have normally,
It
would have been at the
is,
end
this
of
is the
September.
right time
Okay.
to do it, yes.
Okay.
So I'm honoring our
I
obligation.
was thinking for some reason that it came at the beginning.
No,
And that it was already
no.
due, so.
No, it's
okay.
already, it's postpaid, so.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Me. Okay. And then Mindy. Okay. Lisa.
Jay, when did you find out about this second Attorney General opinion?
Friday.
And why was directors not told before today's meeting? As the legislative body that has to make a decision, that we were gonna have a conversation, and on Friday, this was on an agenda for, a vote. Why were we not told?
I
Not think that's vital information for us to make decisions?
I have no good answer to that. I just it was not something that occurred to me to disseminate that out to the board.
Okay, as the legislative body, we can only make votes based off the facts that we're given. And if we're lacking in the facts that we're giving, that messes us up. And we can vote wrong for the citizens. And
Sure.
that's vital information that we should get.
And I understand that, but I also want to point out that the Attorney General's opinion did not change. I mean, it remains the same. They fleshed out their reasoning, but there's
When you say
no,
that, it
there's
looks
no
like you're
difference
hiding
in the
it then.
opinion in the bottom line.
When you say that, it looks like you're hiding it. You should never hide it from your legislative body that makes the decisions, that vote for the city, but
No.
vote for the citizens.
There's no attempt to hide anything. Just anyway, I just didn't realize that was something that the the board would need or care for to be provided. Sorry, that was an oversight on my part. If in fact, I mean, obviously, you would have liked to have seen it in advance, and but sorry, I just did not didn't consider that, and that I will apologize for.
Now, how did Director Blair get it? So you had it?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I didn't
Can't
hear you.
converse
Can you
with
speak
us.
it, can you all
Has to
speak
be
in the
in board
mic? I
meetings.
can't.
Yeah.
Hope
What,
sent it
what
to
did
me.
Mindy ask? I'm sorry.
Director Blair was the one that gave these to us tonight, so I was asking when she got it. So
Okay.
she had it.
What's the answer? I didn't hear the answer.
Hope sent it to me a few
Okay.
days ago. I'm not supposed to forward things to y'all.
Right. I was just wondering, because you did have it.
No.
Okay.
We followed rules.
Well, if our city attorney had it on Friday, we most certainly should have had it. That's part of his job.
I do want to say, this has been a long 10 months. This has not been personal. This has not been about Main Street. Nobody, not one person has asked me, why did you vote no? Why did you vote no whenever you voted against that? I have not been asked, because I've asked, I've said, and I've said it all along, it's not personal. I have visited with Stacy. I have went to Stacy's office and visited her when she first came on board. But we have $40-something million in sidewalks that need repaired. We have 50-something million in streets that need repaired. We have 50-something million in drainage that needs repaired. We have a shelter, an animal shelter, that was put in ages ago, and since then we've tripled in population, and we can't provide animal control services at the level that we should. We can't provide shelter for animals that we should. But we want to keep nickel and diming. And people think it's because I hate Main Street. I don't hate Main Street. I've visited Main Street. I've spent thousands, and I can prove it, down on Main Street. My vote did not reflect my personal opinion. My vote reflected being a good steward of citizens' money, being the conservative that I ran on. And some of us, our families, have went through a lot. We have been accused of a lot. My vote is because we need to take care of our needs before our wants. 30,000 here, 50,000 there. We gave 50,000 to the golf course. I said no. You know what those people did? They were very nice to me afterwards. They said, you know what? I understand why you voted no, because you said why you voted no, and I completely understand that. They didn't take it personal. And I voted no on the other 30,000 for the golf course. I have voted no to the city on getting extra lawnmowers because they didn't want to put them in a trailer and load them from one location to another. I have voted on no on many things, not just Main Street. This is not personal to Main Street. And it's not Main Street's fault that we are in this situation. And so I do think we need to move forward, give them the money, especially for the services that they have done.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Mindy.
I do understand what you're saying about, people have given you and your family a hard time. I get it too. My yeses end up causing a lot of grief for me and my family, like your no's, and vice versa. So that's the position that we're in. It's just what happens when we're in a position like this. We're never going to please everybody, but we just have to do what we feel is best, what we feel is best for the citizens and the community, and vote our consciences in these matters. And it's different for everybody. I do want to reiterate, when I said I'm disheartened by what feels like an attempt to imply that there was maliciousness, that's not about Judy so much, because you all have made it very clear you feel like Judy was given bad advice. I have a hard time believing that there was maliciousness behind any of the decisions by any of the staff, anyone else. I just think it was an attempt to continue to honor something that we had done. We had already appropriated the money. It kind of came as a shock, I think, to everyone when it didn't pass that night. You all have admitted that it even came as a shock to you the night that it didn't pass, because it was 3-2, 3 in favor, 2 against. So we all thought, okay, it passed. But then we were given an opportunity to override that veto, and we didn't. And I know there's been a lot of concern about that veto having set a precedent, and we don't want to do that. And at our last meeting, I asked, didn't we make a change in our rules of procedure? And we actually did. You thought we didn't, but we actually did under mayor's veto power, because part of the argument was the mayor can't veto something that didn't happen. It's like a double negative. And so previously, our procedure said that the mayor has the power to veto any ordinance, resolution, or order or part thereof adopted by the board of directors within 5 days. We changed that to say, and I don't, according to Jay, it didn't really make any difference, but I think it appeased us, made us feel better to say the mayor has the power to veto any ordinance, resolution, or order other than personnel passed by the majority of the board of directors and or adopted. So we added that passed by, even though I'm not sure that it really made a difference legalese, in legalese terms, we added that passed by so that in the future, a mayor couldn't veto, because we thought it was right at one time, couldn't veto a no decision. So we said, we added passed by so that it would never happen again that a mayor could veto a no decision. So I feel like there wasn't maliciousness behind any of the people that were part of all that's gone on. It's gone on for a long time. We've gotten lots of different opinions about things. I don't know the law myself. I'm not afraid to say I'm wrong about something. I don't know what is wrong and what is right at this point. It is a very complicated matter. You've said it yourself several times. This is complicated, and and it sounds like we're trying to make it much more straightforward than it is. It's just not. It's just there's too many things going on. So I don't know what to do. I feel like we need to figure out something and move on for the sake of the citizens, for the sake of Main Street, for the sake of the board, the staff, everybody that's been involved in this. If that is 2 resolutions, can we get help in creating 2 resolutions? Is AML willing to be involved in that? Would that satisfy us if we split the 2 out and have two resolutions?
Mr. Lancaster offered 1 resolution. AML, did you approve that?
No.
Well, yeah, and if I may, just real quickly, Mr. Lancaster is a good lawyer. I think I'm a good lawyer. I think Jay's a good lawyer. Ron Alves is a good lawyer. There's a lot of lawyers that are looking at this, and we still can't exactly figure out the simplest way. Mr. Lancaster's resolution, when I read his letter, he said that it's going to be, he wanted an apology, but first and foremost, he wanted a validation of the appropriation. His resolution had nothing about the appropriation. So
we asked him to write a resolution that would stop this from happening again. We asked him to specifically only write one for the veto. We didn't ask him to do the Main Street money, the misappropriation.
Oh, sorry.
Any of that.
He offered in the meeting
Right.
to fix the veto from ever occurring.
Okay.
again.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was all we asked him
Okay,
for.
well, his letter doesn't reflect that, so I missed that part, of course.
You would have had to have watched the whole meeting.
Yeah, true.
So,
True, I would have.
yeah,
So I don't approve of his because I think it's back to your point. They were trying to make this very simple, and it's really not. So I read his language. It didn't address the appropriation, which I thought was sort of the crux of what he was saying he needed, which I thought was a fair point that he made. And he didn't have it in there, so I honestly was like, well, that's obviously not part of this.
It was always meant to be a separate one.
Yeah.
And he was not asked to be involved in that.
Sure, again,
Well,
I've
who
read his
sent
letter, that's all I know.
you the resolution?
Jay.
Did he not tell you the background information?
Well, there's a lot, but he told me
About that specific, because
if
there's
he
not a lot to that
listen,
one.
if he did, I've forgotten. I just read Mr. Lancaster's letter, and I thought, okay, that must be.
I'd like to see that email, please. That went from Jay to him about the resolution that Mr. Lancaster did. Because Mr. Lancaster offered to do that for free, and he offered to do another resolution that either told the entire story, not half the story, and I know you agree with that you either tell the whole story or you don't tell any of it. And it is separate, and the only way to move forward with Main Street is to get that resolution tied up, and it's taken out either the veto stuff or add in all the facts. You say that's a history of the facts, but not all the facts are in there. Only part of the facts are in there.
Sure.
So-
Again, I focus on the be it resolved part.
But this
That's
isn't
the
for
law.
you, and it's not for Jay, and it's not for Alan or us directors. It's for the citizens, and it should reflect exactly. Because you know what? 100 years from now, they're going to be looking at our resolutions. They're going to be looking at our ordinances and trying to figure out why did they do this. And if you only put part of the information, part of the story in there, they're not getting why we did what we did.
I'm 1,000% for local control, so if that's what y'all want to do, I stand behind you 1,000%.
Can you clarify what's missing? I'm still confused on what's missing.
Well, it says in the, I don't have it, I should have brought it with me.
It's supposed to be two different things. There's supposed to be the appropriation of money to Main Street being approved by this board, which is the title of the resolution. But then there's supposed to be a separate one that Mr. Lancaster did provide us, and I thought was written very well, to simply say, we will not allow the mayor to ever veto an issue that doesn't have 4 votes. It was
Oh.
2 totally separate issues.
And we have 2 resolutions, and it seems to me the one Mr. Lancaster wrote that would take care of the veto issue, we could pass it, and then if
But has
he
that been distributed?
Yeah,
Al's
where
not
is
agreeing with
that?
it.
Where is Lancaster's?
He
It's
said
in-
he
it was supposed to-
sent
it was in the
Maybe
packet.
it's
Just
not
a-
been distributed. Maybe it's
It's
not
been
been.
in the, it's in the board
It was in
packet.
your packet.
And it was sent out in an email.
At a-
to
If I
all
may,
of us.
I have read it, and I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
no, I was just gonna say, so then the other, so we, basically, it seems to me, we need to have 2 resolutions. The one we got from Mr. Lancaster, and then a different version of the one that's telling the partial facts.
Right.
Well,
And that would take care of Main Street, and the one from Mr. Lancaster would take care of the veto.
Madam Mayor?
Again, y'all,
Yes, David.
I think the one for the appropriation of money to Main Street is really, really simple. And I think this board could write it over having to have an attorney, because our city attorney overrode it, including facts that were illegal. We don't want all that stuff. We just want the fact that we are approving what's been paid and we're approving the rest of what the contract stated. That's it. So it's 2 totally different things, and to try to cram it into one is just muddying the water.
since you asked my opinion, I will say this about, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
Well, the part that I will say that always makes me very nervous as a trial lawyer and here to protect your interest is the part that he does say the use of the veto to pass a failed action of the board was improper and contrary to Arkansas law. Now, again, I'm not, you know where I stand on this issue, but I can tell you it makes trial lawyers very nervous when their client is admitting guilt, especially when I think there is some more context to this that I would be. Here's the thing, is that under the law, the city administrator, let me read it to you, may contract for services. So the law on one hand says the city administrator can do it. Then on the other hand, it says he or she, the mayor, shall sign all written agreements, the execution of which have been approved by the board of directors. So even right there, we're not sure what's really happening. Because on the one hand, Mr. Patterson could have entered into the contract, but then also says that the mayor has to sign the contract. So which one is it? Does the city administrator get the contract?
You can't do both.
I completely agree, but the law does
by
allow it.
bringing it to us for a vote, the mayor approving it, she should have been the one to sign it if it was going to be signed. And by
Right.
him to go behind this board was illegal by state law, and even when staff advised him, so.
Again, I'm not debating that point.
And
What I'm saying is that
what I'm gonna say to you, John, is that the letter from Lancaster says there will be no lawsuit if bump is done. That's what we're trying to do. Now, whether the mayor decides to apologize or not, that's her decision. But to get 2 resolutions saying we're not gonna ever have a veto like this again, and we're paying Main Street, we're appropriating what's been paid, and that we're gonna pay the rest of the money, that's 2 simple resolutions. And it's just been continued to be muddy, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. If somebody says, hey, you do all these things, you're in the clear, I think we need to do them, and I think that's what we've been on the path to do. The other thing I was gonna state, since everybody's been talking about how this got to this place in the first place, and not everybody, but a big, large group loves to go around and say this was all me, that I caused all this. What occurred on December 6th of 2022 was I stated a fact that Main Street's contract stated they had to promote all downtown events, and they were not, because they did not have anything promoting the upcoming downtown trick-or-treat on their website. Stacy said that was not true, but by the end of the meeting, she came up and said, I looked, and she was on her phone back there, and she came up and said, you were right. Okay, no big deal. I had not a single clue that by me stating I can't support it, I was voting my conscience, and the fact that I have heard in 2 years, the first 2 years of this term, more people gripe about Main Street receiving money than any other expenditure besides buying another $45,000 lawnmower that was unneeded simply because Don Clark wanted it. But I'm just saying, I didn't have a clue until Mayor Judy said motion failed that it wasn't going to pass. I really was dumbstruck. But the real fight came about when we decided to allow, and I say allow generally by Main Street, to allow all the businesses to put these big white cards in their businesses that were full of lies about this board. That was like throwing the gauntlet of, we're going to take this to the streets and fight till we're bloody. It was nonsense. It made no sense. Let's get it done and over with. But it was about tearing people down to the point that now there's Instagram pages called Siloam City Board that talk about our chamber president and our administrator playing poker together, which is nonsense. There's stuff on there that is just insulting to this board, pages and pages and pages of stuff that are malicious. You want to talk about malicious? The Instagram page, Siloam City Board, is purposefully malicious.
Madam Mayor.
I'm talking. Just a moment. I'm
Point of
almost done.
Order, Madam Mayor.
Point of order.
Point of order for what?
Have a point of order, and what are you calling the point of order for?
I think that we are kind of getting off track. This has gone on long enough, and I think we need to come to this conclusion.
I agree wholeheartedly, but the other board members had a chance to talk about the basis for their vote, and that's what I'm at. I have one last thing to say.
Please don't scream, though.
I'm not screaming. I will say that the continued bringing up by any board member that we had the chance to override the mayor veto, which it has been brought up over and over again, it is said as if it was a chance that we didn't follow through. It was an invalid veto. It's been proven it was illegal. That's why there was no pursuit to override it. So bringing it up over and over and over as if this was something that we had the chance to do, but we chose not to do, that's incorrect. And it's infuriating to keep hearing it because it was not something we just decided not to do.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Lisa.
I have a question for you, John. So Mr. Lancaster has offered to do the other resolution. I don't know if this is common practice, and you can say no. I meant, could you and him have conversations to come up with resolutions? Because he knows all aspects of this, and it doesn't sound like you got all the information to make a decision on this one. I mean, you pointed out one error, but you even admitted that once you didn't know all that background. Is it common that maybe you and him, Mr. Lancaster, could get together and come up with two resolutions that fit the city, and you know the issues, you know the problems, you know the frustrations?
I will help you in any way I can. And if that's the will of the board, then I'll do whatever I can to help y'all. But I will say that I will lean on Jay as well, because he's your city attorney, and I will lean on him to help me through that as well. So again, if y'all want me to do that, I will be happy to do it. But I will say that well, yes, I'll be happy to help any way I can. I will say, though, my point was a substantive one about the admission of liability. And so your point about whether or not to pass you said 2 resolutions, one to appropriate the money or allocate the money, and one to say you're not setting a precedent, that's great. That's not what this resolution does. It says it's not a precedent, and then it says that the city violated the law. So that was my point I was making.
Which one are you talking about?
Mr. Lancaster's.
Oh, okay.
And so that was my point. So I feel like I don't want you to debate. I'm not debating that issue.
Or if we did,
Right.
I didn't realize it. If it was emailed to us,
Yeah, it's in that resolution. So that was. But again, whatever y'all want me to do to help, I'll be happy to.
He's the one that would bring the lawsuit, and the lawsuit would be against the city and Jay, I guess. I don't know.
I could
So
look.
that's where,
Yeah,
I think
it's-
that's a conflict of interest having
No,
Jay involved.
I don't think it is. I think it's unusual, but this whole thing has been unusual. But as far as working out with an opposing counsel on a resolution that would satisfy everybody, then that's not unusual.
So Mr. Lancaster's willing to do that, so why, that sounds like what we need to do, is if we all want to come to an agreement.
I respectfully request that Jay not be involved in this. He has tried and tried, and his results are not satisfactory.
I'll do whatever I can to help.
Thank you.
So then is that the direction of the board to John, is that he try to put together a resolution, 2 separate resolutions to address these 2 separate issues along with Mr. Lancaster? Is that the direction of this board for him? Do I see?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Reed?
I think it is, but I have respect for our city attorney, and I think that we need to involve him. We don't have to try to circumvent him. I believe he has competency and can be a help.
So is that where we are?
I disagree, since we're here because of his legal advice. I'm fine with Mr. Wilkerson and Mr. Lancaster.
So the rest of the board? I've heard from 2 of you. How about the other 4? Or,
Madam Mayor?
yeah,
I believe that Jay ought to be involved with the other 2 attorneys.
yes.
Something. I would ask that you please give me the discretion to handle this the way I think that it needs to be handled. I think you need that. I can handle this, I assure you. I mean, if I can, I'll come to you and say I couldn't handle it. But I would ask that you, since you're asking me to do something for you, I would ask that you give me the discretion to handle it the way I deem fit.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
John, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I believe that we should take this
Mayor, if
offer.
I may.
Yes, yes.
Can I make a recommendation? I work for the pleasure of the board. I believe AML has our best interest. Let's give them a shot to put this together. It'll come back to you before it goes to vote. And if you're satisfied, we will go forward. If not, we can take a different avenue at that time. But I think we need to give AML, that's just my suggestion, to work on this on both resolutions and make sure the board is satisfied. And again, I'll make sure you guys stay in the loop on what we're put together.
So, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Do we have a pre-agenda meeting next week?
Yes, ma'am.
So would it be possible to have this before then so we can discuss it and then vote on it? I know that's pushing it. Vote on it. It'd just be nice to get it taken care of at the next regular board meeting.
I think through the context and the simplicity that you want this, I think that's possible. I can work with John, and we'll try to have you something by the pre-agenda.
And that pre-agenda meeting is next Wednesday, so that you're aware of that date.
Yes, and again, if you can't get me something by that Wednesday, I'll try to get you something, because our pre-agenda is at 3 o'clock. So if I possibly get something that morning, I can forward it.
Is that agreeable to the board? Okay. And as your mayor, and my desire my desire to serve the citizens of this city, which I love with all my heart. I will get with John and seek his advice on how I need to proceed. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
with that, we will move on to our August financials and administrators report. No?
Mayor, if
Oh,
I
I'm
may,
sorry.
Miss
We
Delia.
have one other special thing that we need to do. John?
Back again. So I'll say this, I've been with the league for 17 years, and I've been with the legislature, working on behalf of the cities and towns of Arkansas and Siloam Springs, of course, since 2015. And it's not always summer camp out there in the legislature every 2 years, but I can tell you that the person that we're here to recognize tonight, Representative Haak, does make it easier. And I think Representative Haak, I think it's appropriate that we're doing this in the midst of something that's very heavy and very difficult, because the challenges that she and I have faced together at the legislature have been very heavy and very challenging. And she has taken fights to the legislature and battles on your behalf, on all of her constituents' behalf, that have been very, very difficult. The first one I remember is executive session for economic development, which was trying to allow that cities be able to go into executive session to talk about economic development. That was a great bill. We worked very, very hard on it. The press disagreed with it, which I completely respect and appreciate their opinion. But she was there, and we went to the press. We talked to them. We talked to the FOI board together. And we tried to get something done. It didn't pass, but it's very challenging, and it showed me the resilience of Representative Haak. And then that led, by the way, to a bill that gave us more input or information on our sales tax, which is a huge, huge gain for us. And that, again, was a very hard thing to push forward. She has shown, ever since I've known her, that resiliency and that ability and that desire to represent her people and fight for her people. Sometimes it may seem like against all odds, but she's always there to do it. She's an absolute champion of local control, and she cares about you. It has been a real blessing for y'all to have her at the Capitol. And I will end on a personal note, if I may. I bring my children, my son and my daughter. I got a little one that's too young to go, but I bring my son and my daughter to the Capitol. And every time I bring my kids to the Capitol, I make sure that my daughter meets her and talks to her, because she embodies what it means to be a good person, a good legislator, and a good advocate for cities and towns across Arkansas. So with that in mind, I had the Distinguished Legislator Award in honor of Representative Haak, who's demonstrated exemplary service that benefited the cities and towns of Arkansas during the 94th General Assembly and beyond. So with that, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, John. It does feel like we're back in the legislature right now and committees and different things. I have resided outside of the city limits since 1979. My husband and I were blessed to have property and houses here in Siloam Springs. We are a part of this community. I worked at John Brown University 21 years, would drive and realize I'm in the parking lot before I left my home. So this is my heart, as Mayor Nation has said, and I have always been proud to fight for this community, all of the citizens and the people who work here. Thank you to the city employees and the council members for representing our citizens, much of which I feel like I am one. So thank you very much. This means a lot from the Municipal League of Arkansas. And to John's point, we're honored to represent and work for the citizens of Arkansas in Little Rock, but it's always so great to come back home and realize where we live is the best place, I believe, to be in Arkansas. So thank you very much for allowing him to present this to me tonight at our city council meeting.
Thank you, Delia. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, John, and allowing us to be a part of that. She is a very special lady. So with that, we will move on to our August financials and administrators report.
Board, the August financials are in your packet, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Director Petrus, Christina. And my administrator's report, I just wanted to start out with a big thank you to the community, the board, the staff. My wife's mother died suddenly, and I've been out of town, and I can't thank all of you enough. I came back. There's flowers in my office. There was flowers sent to Mississippi, and I even had a citizen stop by and drop a Bible, her personal Bible, off to me, with different things in there to read, and just about my leadership, and my family. And I just want to tell you a big thank you, because it meant a lot to us, and it just made us realize what an awesome community that we live in, and that we made the right decision to move here. And I know we're going through some tough times, but we have a great city. We're resilient. But just from my family, my wife, thank you. Meant a lot to us. And I'd like to report some expenditures in the excess of $30,000. We spent $38,000 for a concrete driveway at Fire Station 1 for the fire department. An expenditure of $41,944.54 for fourth quarter processed chemical for the water treatment plant. An expenditure for $48,734.46 for 600 amp elbows, bushings, and caps for the electric department. An expenditure for $49,537.30 for standoff plug, bushings, well insert for URD elbows for the electric department. And then just a reminder, for fall cleanup event is going on this week. Citizens can put out large items such as furniture, mattresses, etc. for pickup for their usual trash day this week. Tires and hazardous materials are excluded. A full list of excluded items is available on our website. This is a service provided by the Sanitation Division to help our city stay beautiful. This Wednesday marks Siloam's High School Homecoming Parade. The parade kicks off from the Southside Elementary School at 5 p.m. A map of the parade route is also on our website and social media pages. Saturday, the second annual Chalk It Up chalk art competition will be held at Memorial Park. Prizes will be presented for the best show on the People's Choice winners. And last, don't miss September's edition of the Connect Siloam Springs. It's packed with projects, events that happened last month, and is available on our website and social media pages. And that's my report, in case you have any questions.
Thank you, Alan. Directors, any questions for the administrator? If not, we will move to our director's reports. And Mindy, we will start with you.
I want to thank the sanitation service for doing fall cleanup. I said it before. That's a pretty awesome service that the city of Siloam provides. Doesn't happen in every city, so I appreciate the work they do. And it's something that everyone has fun with. And I think I've said this before too. One man's trash is another man's treasure, and sometimes a lot of our stuff is gone before the sanitation people even get there, and I love that. That's great. So thank you to them. And I'll just leave it with I appreciate there's a little of something for everyone in Siloam. I know we don't all like the same things. I know we don't always agree on everything. We have different interests. We have different ways of going about things, but there's a little something of everything for everyone. And I think we need to remember that and to take advantage of the different opportunities that we have. And to remember that just because we may not like something doesn't mean someone else doesn't. Just because we may not use something doesn't mean that someone else doesn't. And just respect that and appreciate that, and know that that this is a good place to be, and there are good people here. And I think we all, if you're here, you want what's best for this community as well, just as much as we do. Takes working together, takes trying to understand each other, takes respecting each other. So that's all.
Thank you. Betsy?
I kind of feel like I've talked enough. Just wanted to give a plug for the senior center. They're doing pumpkin carving. I think Stanley Church is doing it. He does some amazing stuff. So check out the senior center. And of course, the animal shelter can always use toys and chews and collars, and if they're not open, you can drop it off on the bench out front. So my brain is dead now.
Lisa?
I want to take this time to show support for you, Judy. You are, I think people know you as a Christian lady. You're a proud Christian lady. You proclaim Christ. You stand up for what you believe in, and people are supporting you, even when it doesn't feel like it. So I think you need to hear that, and I think you need to know that. And so I just want you to know that. And you are loved.
And before I move on to read, I know there is a row of young ladies here that I see have been taking notes during our meeting. And what a night for you all to be here. So, but who are these young ladies? If you... Oh, perfect. Well, thank you all for being here. We hope you enjoyed your experience.
They might not ever come back.
And be sure and come and see us again. Thank you. So, with that, Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking forward to some cool temps. Hopefully they'll just stay cool and not cold. Homegrown is upcoming this weekend. Looking forward to all the goodness that it can bring and the unity that it brings to our community, but also it's going to showcase those who are coming to John Brown's homecoming and any of those that are wanting to travel on the weekend, that we can show them our community. And Madam Mayor, you are a stand-up gal. Thank you.
Carol?
I wanted to offer my condolences to the Aiken family and the McEnroe family. Gloria McEnroe passed away last week, and she is the reason that I am sitting in this chair. And I appreciated the day that she came to my office and asked me if I would be on the Planning Commission and would be a chairman of the Planning Commission. She meant a lot to me, and she did a lot for our city, and so did Barbara Akins. And I appreciate both of those great women. Those are my role models. And I know she's got a relative sitting out there, so I know that you will appreciate that. I enjoyed the Walls talk, and it was the Estabrook Selby House. It was very interesting, and the shop was just like he kind of walked out of it. It was just really kind of interesting. If you did not get a chance to see it, I'm sorry you missed it. And I do appreciate the fall cleanup. We get rid of a lot of things just by sitting it on the curb. So it saves the city some money. And as Director Hunt said, I think we are one of the few cities that does that. And I think that's a good attribute of our city that we offer that. So thank you.
Thank you,
And
Carol.
Mayor, I do appreciate everything that you do. I know that you have a heart for this city like all of the other board members. We are here because we care about this community and we care about our citizens. Thank you.
Here, David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also wish to offer my condolences to two really what I consider local legends in Siloam. Barbara Akins was the school nurse at Northside when I was growing up, and she was wonderful. She's a great lady. She was the one that always gave us our tetanus and vaccine shots and everything. So that little thing I got on my arm. And she was a sweet lady. And Gloria McEnroe. I've known her forever. I was on the Siloam Springs Memorial Hospital Foundation board with her as her vice president. I learned a lot from her. I'm sorry. Condolences to you and Brenda, Chief, for the loss of your mother-in-law. I know your family's been needing a lot of prayers for a couple years now. I was going to say something about John Wilkerson mentioning what Delia had worked on economic development being more private, and according to FOIA. And I think what I've learned, at least in part from our chamber president, Arthur Hulbert, that when new businesses come into town, they don't always want, or not want, but they can't let just everybody in the public know that they're about to build a new building or come to, because all their competition will know about it. Sorry, I got a little emotional. But that was, I believe, the reason for that. And I think we have to deal with that here too as Siloam grows and we get more national restaurants or national commercial buildings or commercial businesses that things are not always public and people, well, we don't know everything. It's being worked on in the background and we appreciate it. And I really want to give appreciation to Arthur and the chamber for working on bringing new businesses to town. It's not a sole job. He has a team of many people around the community that work, banking partners, et cetera, that all assist. And it's just appreciated. It helps our quality of life, and people move here are excited to see, change that they recognize. I don't like to take away from small business or downtown business, and in fact, when I bought gift certificates or gift cards, I try to always buy them downtown. But nevertheless, for a growing community, these businesses are going to ask to come here and find out how to get here. And I'll never forget when I was mayor, Judy, I had people asking all the time, Chick-fil-A, why can't you? Well, now haven't you been asked? I'm sure you've been.
I absolutely
As
have.
if you could snap your fingers and get them here. But, it's one of those things where we are going to get more, and I appreciate the chamber for all their work. I got to say, I never intended offense to Main Street or anyone else in my comments on December 6th. I thought I was voting my constituents, which were all elected and supposed to do, which is what I think Mayor Judy was doing in asking staff after hearing from her constituents. And we're all supposed to be able to rely on that advice. Judy has been a fantastic mayor. I've seen 5 of them, and she's in the top 2, I can tell you that. About equal with Moose, who was a legend in himself.
He was indeed.
And your thoughts on the demands of an apology are up to you and your conscience. And if you've been advised to not put the city at risk legally, I know you've already said that this would never be ever allowed to happen again. You've said that privately and publicly, so I think you've done everything you can do. My dad always had a saying, you live and you learn. And we all have. But you are very loved in this community. I've said it before. And you are. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. I'm sorry. Everything built up tonight and got to me. But I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.